Welcome to the first video where we're going to talk about trigonometry. So today we're going to talk about trigonometry. So it's trigonometry. Now, most people say this is the most difficult topic, and today what I'm going to try to do is try and simplify it for you. So let's start here. In order for you to understand trigonometry, this is the very basic. We call these four parts, we call them quadrants. So this would be quadrant 1, this would be quadrant 2, this would be quadrant 3, and this would be quadrant 4. So we have four quadrants. This here is 0 degrees or 360 degrees. So it is usual that in trigonometry we take or we move our angles or we measure our angles anti-clockwise. So this will be 0, and up here we'll have 90 degrees, we'll have 180 degrees, and here we'll have 270 degrees. So this is the very basic. And now we move on to what we call trig ratios. Now I want you to think about this, and if you really think about this, it will help you understand what we're really talking about. We say it's trig ratios. Ratios means it's a fraction, so it's trig ratios. Now we start the first one. Sine theta, we say, is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Now you can see this is a ratio, and we're talking about trigonometry, so this will be a trigonometrical ratio. So this is why we call them trig ratios. Now we're going to move on to the next one, which is cosine of theta, or any other angle that you prefer, will be adjacent side over hypotenuse. And then after that we'll have the third trig ratio rather, which is tan theta is equal to opposite over adjacent. So with these trig ratios, there is a very nice and simple way to remember them, and that is called SOHCAHTOA. So it's SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA, you can see for sine, it's opposite over hypotenuse. For cos, it's adjacent over hypotenuse. And for tan, it's opposite over adjacent. Once you have this in mind, then the next step for you will be to understand that there are angles that we call special angles, but we're not going to deal with how they came about in this video. But all you need to know is that those angles are 30 degrees, 45 degrees, we have 60 degrees. Now if you put these into a calculator like sine 30, you'll get half. So they give us very nice numbers, which sometimes are rational or are simply just natural numbers. So in that way they are special. So with that being said, if you really go back up here to quadrants, so these are angles between 0 and 90, angles between 90 and 180, 180 to 270, up to 360. Now, what is important again is for you to understand that how do these trig ratios behave in each quadrant. In other words, what is the sign that they have, or what is the ratio, what is the sign of the ratio. For instance, in the first quadrant, all trig ratios are positive. And if you go to the second quadrant, you see that only sine is positive. In the third quadrant, we'll have cos, okay, sine of some angle theta, cos of some angle theta. No, rather here it's not cos, but it's tan theta, and here it will be cos theta. Now, for us to actually understand what we mean by that, we need to take a look at the ratios. Here, remember, as much as this quadrant or this Cartesian plane is used to measure angles, you still remember that the numbers here will be positive, because this is the positive axis, and on the other side of the line it will be negative. So let's look here. This is a positive number and a positive number. So if you put a positive number here and here, you'll always get a positive number. Positive and positive, positive and positive. So you still get positive trig ratios. But when you come here, then you have a different case. Because before we can even go there, maybe I can try and simplify this for you to say that even though we're still going to come to the actual angle and to the actual definition in terms of x and y's and r, we can just state it here in order to explain this concept. So for cos we have x over r, for sine we have y over r, and for tan we have y over x. So I think this will simplify this whole thing a great deal. So now in the first quadrant, y and x are always positive. Now the r is actually from what we all know, which is the theorem of Pythagoras. R squared is equal to x squared plus y squared. Now the theorem of Pythagoras, we know that r, which is the hypotenuse, is always positive. So if you have in the first quadrant a positive y, positive r, we get a positive. Positive x, positive r, positive. Positive y, positive x, positive. But when you get to the second quadrant, it's different. For sine, y is still positive and r is positive, so that makes what? Sine positive. But if you come to cos, x is now negative. Let me move that up for you. X is now negative. So if x is negative, then we have a different case, because it's going to be a negative over a positive, which will give us a negative. And then we move on to tan theta. So y is still positive, but now x is negative. X is negative here. So if x is negative, then if you come back to this ratio, then what happens? Y is positive, but x is negative. So then the ratio becomes negative. So we can keep doing the same thing to test and prove that tan will be positive in this quadrant and cos will be positive in this quadrant. And with that have been said, prepare yourself for the next video. But what is more important is that you grasp this and understand this, because this whole thing, the introduction of trigonometry, is going to help you to understand everything you need to know about trigonometry. Thank you for your time. You are with Mkiz and Kosinati.